And I'm the Product Marketing Manager at BigView, and I want to welcome you for today's workshop. Thank you so much for joining us. Please let me know that you're with us today by writing in the chat where you're from and if you know BigView. And in the meantime, I just want to note that this workshop will be recorded and available for watching after the live event, so don't worry about missing parts. And of course, as always, we will have a Q&A session at the end, but feel free to participate and ask questions during the presentation. So today in this workshop, we will learn how to be great on virtual platform. So it's a really, really important subject today. So you better listen really good. And for this, I invited Steve Sapato. He's a speaker coach and a virtual presentation coach. So hello, Steve. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you very much for having me in. Thank you. And I see it looks like Pat clicked on us accidentally. Hey, glad to have you here, Pat. So what I want to share with you, of course, is, as Tal said, being great on virtual is absolutely vital for your success today. Well, obviously the last year changed a whole lot of things, but today we're going to be covering several areas for being great on camera. All right. So you will leave with expert training on how you can be great on the virtual platform, speaking on the small screen. I call it small screen versus the big screen. You know, when we talk about movies, that's the big screen. And you've known a lot of people, actors, who started on TV and tried to make the move to movies and just couldn't make it happen. And you know movie stars who tried to come down to TV, the small screen, and again, had no success. And the reason for that is there's several things that happen in the areas. So the small screen requires specific things to make you really good on it. And that's what we're going to cover here today. So I am Steve Sapato. I am America's favorite speaking coach and one of the nation's leading virtual presentation coaches. All right. I have been doing this for over 30 years. And so I want you to understand that you can, if you need to reach me, reach out to Steve at stevesapato.com and we'll go together from there. But being good virtually is much more difficult than people think it is. It's not just speaking. It's not just leading a meeting. Have you been in a boring meeting lately? I bet you have, haven't you? Why do we put up with boring meetings? Why are people boring? Because we don't tell them they're boring. Do you know that? I have people who share with me, Steve, you don't understand. All my material is boring. And I share with them, no, your material is dry. You are boring. And that's what we don't tell people, isn't it? We don't tell people they're boring. When somebody says, no, I think I got this, Steve. I don't have to take any speaking lessons. And they go, I get accolades all the time. Well, I always say to people, when's the last time you walked up to somebody who was speaking and they said, hey, how'd I do? And you went, you suck, or you're terrible, or you're boring. We don't do it. We always want to make the other person feel better. So just because people are giving you some kind of accolades does not mean that you don't need more training. And that's why I'm here today. That's why Tal brought me in, so that we could talk about what it takes to be really good on the small screen. And so that's what I want you to start understanding, is that all presentations require special skills to be effective. Okay, all of them. But virtual presentations require special skills to be effective on virtual presentations. Virtual presentations require significant training in specialized methods for connecting. How many of you have gone to a boring meeting and knew that the person who was leading the meeting was going to ask a lot of questions? Right? Most of the time they don't, do they? What makes people boring is that they don't understand how to connect, how to engage with the audience. And when we talk about that, okay, we have to figure out, here's what we're going to be talking about today, right? We're going to be talking about boring speaker syndrome. Now, some people call that Zoom fatigue, but you and I know people have been going to meetings for years online. They've been meeting online for years and years, and they've been meeting at 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock all day long. And nobody called it boring Zoom meetings then, did they? Or Zoom fatigue, right? What they said was, hey, that's meeting fatigue, way too many meetings throughout the day. Well, suddenly, because we've all been forced to go onto Zoom platforms, of course, we're not necessarily on Zoom, but that's the norm now. They call it Zoom fatigue, and it's not. It's boring speaker syndrome. So here's some tips for you. Here's some things I want you to understand. What's going to make you good on your virtual presentations? First of all, if you say you're going to start on time, the one thing I loved about Tal when she got on here But she said, hey, we have a minute. We're going to start in 1 minute. And I go, cool. Because you know what? Some people say, hey, we'll start in a couple minutes when enough people show up. Really? No, no, because the first person who shows up on time is just as important as the 20th person who shows up 10 minutes late. I don't care whether you're doing on in-person meetings, online meetings, any meeting. Start your meetings on time and with the areas, ideas, and points you will be covering. So we're talking about how you're going to have some methods. We're going to give you methods and ideas how not to be boring on your Zoom meetings, how to be effective in your meetings, how to create interaction at your meetings. How many people here would love to have more interaction when you go to a Zoom meeting? Would you like that? Put a yes over in the chat. If you would like that in the chat, like to do that, more interaction, let us know in the chat, right? We would be glad to answer some of your questions. So I also want you to know that when you come onto a Zoom meeting, you have to reassure participants of your knowledge and your expertise, right? That's important, right? That your knowledge and expertise is vital to your success. So I love that. We over here, that's right. The first person or a few people on time is enough to always begin on time. I love that. That's exactly right. I don't want to feel less because you say, well, Steve, you're the only one here. So we're going to wait for somebody more important to show up. Now, they don't say it that way, do they? They just say, we're going to wait for a few more people. No, always treat the person that's there like they're the most important person that is going to be there and reassure them of your expertise. I tell you, I've been speaking for 40 years. I've been training for 40 years. I taught college and speech courses for 7 years. And I've been touring the country for the last 40 years, teaching people how to run better meetings, how to be better managers, how to be better supervisors, how to do all this stuff. And so I love it when Tal invited me to be on to talk about how to be more successful in their using virtual meetings. Okay. So we want you to stay engaged. We want you to use the chat. We want you to raise your hand and keep your cameras on. One of the things, if you're doing a meeting, ask everybody there to keep their cameras on. Nothing worse than looking at this and having 15 people supposedly on and everybody's not on their cameras. They're off doing something. Now, for all you know, they're gone. So always invite your people to leave their cameras on and use body language to convey your message. One of the things I think people do is they'll sit there, they tuck their hands underneath, and they'll sit there and they'll talk. And they think they're being very engaging. Hey, and you might be. Vocally, you're still engaging. But use something like 93% of all of our meaning is not learned from the words that we use. Let me say that again. 93% of what we do is what conveys our meaning. That means only 7% from the words you're hearing from me. So it's the rest of what we do, right? So when we get on stage, if you're used to being on a stage or in front of people, you're used to big arm gestures and used to this, and you're used to standing up in front and doing certain things. But when it comes to the video, you have to do small gestures. They're still big gestures, but they're on camera. You have to be able to show people that, hey, here's where I am. Here's what I want you to do. And that's important that we stay that way. It's also important to move into the camera and away from the camera. It's important for you to continue to engage your audience with your personality. And so we use body language. When I teach my speaking courses, and I do 3 months and 6 month speaking courses, but I start them all off with facial expressions. Some people call it face dancing, facial gestures, whatever you want to call it. It's expressions to convey your meaning, your involvement. And so my people have to spend 2 minutes every day for the first 3 weeks of our training course on how to be a better and more effective speaker, presenter, by making faces in the mirror. Making faces in the mirror. What kind of faces? Well, I just made like 3 or 4 of them right there, right? Because you go, well, what is that all about, right? It's all about your facial expression. What are you conveying to your audience? If you're not practicing your facial expressions, you're probably making a big mistake. Let me ask you the question. Have you been having an okay day? You're just having a fine day, and somebody says, hey, what's wrong? And you go, wow, nothing's wrong. They go, oh, okay. Well, obviously something that you looked like said something was wrong, right? So they might say, you're having a bad day. Hey, what's wrong today? What's going on with you? And you might be going, nothing, but something about your facial expression conveyed to them that there was something off. You didn't even know you were giving them that face, did you? Practice your facial expressions. That's vital. Use visible gestures to hold their attention. How many people here understand that if you put your hands up, people can see them? If you leave them down, I've sat with lots of people who say, I was doing this and you can't see my hands are just flipping. My hands are just flipping. And if you can't see it, then there might as well not even make those gestures. The importance of using gestures that can be seen on camera, vital to your success, is people know that you're engaged in with them. It's vital. Okay. And so those are some of the things that we have to talk about. You talk about verbal highs and lows. One of the things, I'm not crazy about this format here because I would like to see the people who are in attendance. I would love to see, right, everybody else's face. Look at this screen, look at that screen. For one thing, have you ever been on a meeting and you watch somebody fall asleep while the person was speaking? I was on one a couple weeks ago, and here's this guy who's basically one of the leaders of the event, right? And he was just like, mm, mm. Now, if you are the presenter and you see somebody falling asleep, what do? You don't call them out. You don't go, "Hey, Steve, wake up, you dummy." No, you might go, ask him a question. Hey, has everybody here, right, had chocolate milk today? I don't care what you ask them. Whatever your topic is, you ask them and you find out. But you start engaging, and you might even call me by name. You go, "Hey, Steve, when you brought everybody in today, who did you think of, or who is still missing?" Whatever question you need to ask me to suddenly wake me up and involve me in the communication, because it's only that communication that we're accomplishing. Now, I will tell you that the speaker never asks any questions. You have to ask questions of your audience. Whenever you give a presentation, how many questions should you ask in the course of a 15-minute presentation? How many questions? Anybody want to put in there, take a guess? How many questions should you be asking in a 15-minute presentation? Good question, isn't it? You should be asking at least one question per minute. One question per minute. How many stories should you tell? Depends on what your topic is and that kind of thing. But we say 1 3-minute anecdote for every 10 minutes that you're on camera. One anecdote, if you can do it, right? So when we talk, I've used a couple here when I said somebody else was in a meeting and fell asleep. See, that's an anecdote. That's where we're telling you a story. And you might think, oh, I was on one just the other day where somebody fell asleep also. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to involve the people. And I call it storytizing. If you take my public speaking course, I have all kinds of things that I disagree with the gurus on. And one of them is they call it storytelling. I call it storytizing because it's my course. I designed it. And what the storytizing in, 15 questions. That's right. Storytizing is you tell stories using their memories, their emotions, and their experiences. And people always go, well, how do you do that? I don't know those people. And there's so many people in the audience. How do I do that? Well, let me give you an example of that. Would you be willing to hear an example from me? I hope that's a yes. I didn't see anything pop over here, but if that's a yes, I would love to. But here, let me give you an example. I don't know how old you are, but here's what I will tell you. When I was growing up, we used to have runs of the neighborhood, just go out and play. And how did you know when it was time to go home? At what point in time did you know it was time to go home after you've been out playing? Well, for us, and for most people older, right, it was uh, you had to know what the streetlights were doing. If the streetlights came on, it was time to go home. And if you didn't get home in a few minutes, mom and dad would be really upset with you, right? Because the streetlights came on. Hey, it's dark. Kids didn't go out and play after dark. That's the way the world worked. And so when the streetlights came on, you said bye to all your friends and you lit off and ran home. You see, whatever you were thinking, what was your trigger? What made you go home? So yeah, streetlights came on and it was time to go in. That's exactly right. And so I want you to understand that now I'm using my story, but your experiences also, your emotions, right? The events that happened in your life. And that's what we want you to understand, is that those are the things we have to be able to say to people. We have to share those stories. Storytizing, that's my trademark event. Storytizing so that we tell everything. I always say you take you take your story. I work with authors, and authors say, well, that's my story. I wrote the book because it's my story. And I go, I appreciate that. But most people who talk about my are boring. Have you noticed that? My life, my experiences, my this. Now, some people are just really good storytellers. And if they tell you about an accident that happened on their way in, they can carry that off. Most people can. But if I'm trying to tell you my story, my story, and it will get in the way because it's boring. Have you ever, anybody here go networking? You guys go networking? Like you sit down and there's 20, 30 people in a room and you want to, everybody says you got 30 seconds to a minute to tell who you are and what you do. And I've known people in that 1 minute could bore you so badly that you almost want to take a nap. If they can bore you in a 1 minute networking event, imagine what they would do in a 20-minute talk, a 20-minute speech, or especially an hour-long speech. Oh my gosh, how terrible would that be? And so I tell people, even in networking, stop talking about you. Take out the I's, the me's, the my's, and start asking questions. So if I'm doing my 30-second elevator pitch, the first thing most people say, I'm Steve Sapato. I've been a speaker for 40 years. I can help you become a better speaker. My pitch is always, how many people here have ever seen a boring speaker? And they raise their hands. Oh, everybody does, because everybody's seen a boring speaker. And I go, great. How many people here have seen one recently? They raise their hand. I go, wow, I hope it wasn't you. And of course, everybody laughs at that point in time. But then we also say, like, well, if you saw somebody who's a boring speaker, was that an event where they hire speakers or somebody was just brought in to speak? If they say hire speaker or brought in to speak, I go, those are my ideal clients. I would like to speak with you after the event in order to make connections with those people so I have the opportunity to not be boring the next time you go to that event. You see, I got what I was looking for. Excuse me. I got what I was looking for out of that by asking questions and not telling them boring things about Steve Sapato and boring things about what I do. They already might have an idea what I do. But if I ask them questions, I'll find out more ideas for where I might go to get more business. You see, that's some of the things that we have to talk about is when you're on camera, it's vital. I mean, vital for you to be quote unquote entertaining. Okay. And you have to use verbal continuity. So you got verbal highs and verbal lows, just like that. I went from, hey, we're doing this to, hey, we got to you have to have verbal highs and verbal lows to maintain interest. I love listening to people who are excited about what they do, don't you? Have you heard somebody who's really excited about what they do recently? I mean, besides me, besides me, and that's really important that you understand that we have those verbal highs and lows. What I can't handle is somebody who's always excited and they're always on and they're always doing. No, you got to have the highs and the lows. You got to have them both, don't you? So when we talk about that, even in your highs and lows, if you're asking questions that people have to answer, ta-da, right? Those are the things that you might want to do. And if you're on a multiple platform where other people can jump in, so you might say, "Who can answer this question?" And then you'll call on them, and somebody unmutes them, and they get to talk. Now, set the stage. When you're doing this, you have to say, "When I call on you, you'll have about 15 seconds, and then I'll mute you again. So please make sure you're done in that 15 seconds." People are like, what? Because some people will try and control the rest of your platform. They want to take over. They want to do the talking. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. And so if you allow somebody to talk, always limit how they can talk. Excuse me, I got somebody in my throat. Okay, so no matter what you do, always live up to it too. If I've got 30 seconds to say my elevator pitch or 1 minute to say my elevator pitch, somebody else should be timing you. And when you get to that 50-second mark, you should be doing this. 50 seconds is up. You got 10 seconds to wrap it up. When I do my speaker talks, which is like a TEDx, I do it down here in Tampa, but I tell my speakers they have 15 minutes to speak. They don't have 8 minutes to speak, okay? If you're going to be a professional speaker, especially, or if you're running a meeting, you know how much time you have to speak. So they have 15 minutes to speak, and they can talk as little as 12, but they cannot go over 15, because if you're getting paid, nobody wants to rearrange the schedule of all the other speakers because you went over your time limit. So if you've got 30 seconds or a minute to do that, they get that time. If it's a minute, you give them 50 seconds, they got 10 seconds, then you mute their thing. Boom, you're done. You're done. You can't go over. And you know that would make so many meetings so much easier, wouldn't it? All right. So you also have to be good online, you have to have an agenda. You have to make sure you have a timekeeper. You have to make sure you stay on topic. I'm the squirrel king or a rabbit hole king, whatever you want to call it. Boy, I'm gone on a different topic with the blink of an eye. How about you? So I actually have somebody normally in my events who says, Steve, you're way off topic here. We need to bring this back in. I go, oh, yeah, sorry. And then we come back to where we need to achieve the results we're looking for. Okay, so you need to have an agenda. You need to have a timekeeper. You need to have somebody who keeps you on topic. You have to have an agenda keeper. So if I, get lost, they pull me back to where I was. And a notes keeper. So somebody who takes care of the notes and makes sure the notes get spread out to all the other people. That's if you're doing a meeting online. Um, but the one thing that all of these little things accomplish is trust. Trust is something you will acquire from your attendees over a period of time. Do you know that? Trust. Oh, good. Guess what? Every time Steve runs a meeting, it starts on time and it ends on time. Okay. And that's important. Every time somebody gets a minute to talk, they get a minute, boom, then they're done. And everybody goes, I like that about this guy. Whether they know me personally or don't, they go, he's a man of his word. He says you get a minute, you get a minute. You don't get 2 minutes, you don't get 4 minutes, you don't get to steal the whole thing, right? And somebody's over here asking, mean faces set the stage, or what are the ways to practical facial expressions? I teach my people. Matter of fact, I just started 2 new clients last week. Sent them all the stuff we're going to cover. But one of the first things they have to do is they have to pick a signature topic so that we know what we're going to be working on for the next 6 months. They have to read Storytizing, which is a full course that I offer on how to tell that story. But they have to start their facial expressions. And I tell them the way you do that is you decide in the mirror every day for 2 minutes. Just stand there. So if you're brushing your teeth, pause, decide what face you want to make. Like, you want to make your mean face? What's your mean face look like? What's your lunatic face look like, right? This is my lunatic face. Wow. Crazy, isn't it? And of course, my happy face, my smiling face. One of the biggest challenges, if you get a photo taken, and you've seen the photos where everybody's doing this, why do so many people stick their tongue out and make faces when what you really want is a good photo of them, right? And the answer is they're not comfortable with how they look. They're not comfortable with how they sound on video or audio. Wow. So you have to get good. That's why I thought the selfie time, when everybody's taking selfies out these last few years of selfies, would cure that problem. And it didn't, right? Those people still can take selfies and then be terrified of being in somebody else's picture, being in somebody else's video, having to speak in front of people. So what we learn is the more time you spend doing the things you have to do. So 2 minutes of practicing different facial expressions. I tell people I learned that from when I was a kid. I was 15 years old and I had a howdy doody face. So I was constantly getting beat up, 15, 16 years old, before my dad sent me to judo and karate schools for 3.5 years, from 17 until I was 20. And the reason for that was not so I could beat up other kids. It was so I wouldn't get beat up. But along the way, I learned not to get beat up by making faces at the people who wanted to beat me up. And I mean faces like, please don't hurt me. Please don't hurt me. I don't want to be hurt. And almost crying. And so once you learn those kind of things, it becomes natural for you to learn other faces, faces that are much more powerful rather than fearful. And so I learned to face down the bullies, right? And when I faced down the bullies, it was a lot of times just staring them down, just looking at them, going, don't do that to these people. I know you're bullying this person. And they go, it's none of your business. I go, every time somebody bullies somebody else, it's my business and I plan to be involved. So what are you going to do now, right? And then you give them that face that says, I mean it, right? And most bullies will back down. And that's what you have to learn to do. Back down the bullies either who are bothering you online, back down the bullies that are doing this. But that's what it's all about. And I see we're running close to the time. Tal gave me 25 minutes. Somebody says, I hate the tongue thing. That's true, right? But I want you, if you have questions for me, please write to me, steve@stevesapato.com. And I would love to answer questions for you. Certainly, I've got several websites out there that Tal will be glad to direct you to. Some teaching you how to be better speakers, better presenters. Some teaching you how to be better networkers. And certainly, if you decide if you're in the States and you want to go on a cruise, we're planning a new cruise in January to go to Cozumel from Tampa to Cozumel. And it's going to be a speakers cruise. So we're going to teach people how to be better speakers, better presenters. And that's what we're all about. So if you have an interest in being more, I would love to help you, love to work with you. And if you have other questions that maybe I can't answer, I have tons of people that I can forward you to. The one thing that I love about most people that I'm in contact with, they'll give you a free 30-minute, 60-minute opportunity to learn from them before they say, okay, that's all the free information you get. Now you're going to have to start paying if you want more information than that. One of the things that we all struggle with, of course, is not wanting to call somebody because you think they're going to charge me right away. I don't want to pay for somebody's time, or they're going to try and hard sell me. None of my friends offer you a hard sell. All of my friends offer you a, what can I do to help you? Because that's what we're in the business of doing. I want to help you excel at what you do. Being great at public speaking will help your business grow. Being great at public speaking, being great in the virtual environment, being great and an effective speaker and presenter on the virtual screen will absolutely change your life. And so it's all about, how do you do that? What do you do? This is a quick 30 minutes. When you get into what we do, you'll find out. Matter of fact, I was just reading something here the other minute, about 20 minutes ago. Somebody was offering a course. They said free, and of course, free online. As soon as you click it, it says, "Hey, you can buy this whole course for only $19.95 or $1,995." So it was really cute. But they were offering a course on how you get hired, how you get invited to speak on podcasts, how you get invited to speak here, and you know what? That's true. You got to know how to get invited, and you have to invite yourself a lot of times. I've had people on my podcast who didn't want to, who didn't offer me their podcast until I said, "Hey, well, you think you're going to have me on your podcast?" And, "Oh, that'd be a great idea." Now, if I really know what their podcast is, I might want to promote that. But if, there's places that you belong and don't belong, podcasts that will help you and won't help you. So the important part is, anytime you get the opportunity, make sure that you're entertaining. Make sure that your face conveys what you want it to convey. Make sure that you're dressed appropriately. I got a video out there that I just had fun making. It was only about 5 minutes long, but it was the improper way to be on a Zoom, and it was showing people, picking their teeth and laying back and eating, and people do that stuff, don't they? You go, what is that all about? And so it's interesting to me that people make fools of themselves and don't even realize they do. And so that's important, that we always represent ourselves the way we want to be represented. That's important for you to make sure that you understand that, hey, it's great if you want, if your rappers or me are the consummate people because they look a certain way, right? I'm not going to hire a rapper, probably, to be on one of my presentations because they don't convey what my people are looking for. But you know what? Rappers make tons of money and rappers have lots of followers. And if that's in your bailiwick, if that's the kind of person that will help you promote your whole concept, great, do that. But always know who your ideal client is. Know who they are and what they bring. So if there's anything I can do for you folks, I think Tal put over in the side my information, my mail, and my website. Certainly reach out to me. I would love to hear from you, love to have the opportunity to help you. I'll do a 30-minute consultation with you to see if that can help you. A 30-minute free consultation. You just write to me and say, "Hey, I saw you on Big View, or I saw you on Tal's promotion." And we will do a 30-minute consultation to see where you might need help. It might not be public speaking. It might be how to build your business. It might be how to run a meeting more succinctly. I don't know what you need, but here's what I will tell you. I'm really old and I've got lots of experience, lots of knowledge. That's one of the things people say to me all the time is, "Gosh, Steve, you have so much information." And I go, "Thanks. I appreciate that," because that meant I must have conveyed it in a way that they thought would be helpful. And I want to help you. So that's the things we have to put together in terms of what we're going to do. Reach out to me, Steve at stevesapato.com. You can go to stevesapatoseminars.com. Go to Stop Boring Speakers or StopBoringMeetings.com. You'll find me out there. And of course, I'm on Eventbrite for the new cruise to Cozumel, Speakers Cruise it's called. And love to have you there in January of 2022. We're going to have a great time. It's going to be fun. You can go lots of places. Cozumel has some great stuff there, including the Mayan ruins, as well as snorkeling or scuba diving, all on the day that we get there. So I'm not sure what time we're supposed to end this up. Tal had said 25, 30 minutes. There she is right there. And I appreciate you guys all being here. And if there's anything I can do for you, please reach out to me.
Great. Thank you so much. You got so many great comments right now about the presentation. Feel free to ask more questions if you have them now or email them to Steve. And I sent Steve's information and also Big View's information in the chat. So feel free to reach out. And we can wait one more minute for questions.
And Big View is obviously a phenomenal thing. I use it on my phone stuff all the time. I always put it up. If you've got something that you need to be succinct on, specific information, you better have it written down. And you can't just keep looking over to the side. People don't like it. So use the Big View platform for your phone and get that information in.
You get more thank yous and great information.
Hey, thanks a lot. Sure appreciate you guys.
Great. So I think this is it for today. Thank you so much, Steve, for
My
the
pleasure, Tal. Thanks.
And thank you all for coming, and see you in the next workshop.